Every little thing you think that you need. Every little thing you think that you need. Every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.
You're listening to the Minimalist Podcast with Joshua Fields Milburn and TK Coleman, recorded live at Irving Studios in sunny California.
Yes, thank you, Alabama. Hello, everybody. Coming up on this free public minimal episode, we're talking about this new trend. It's called Underconsumption Core, since we have a caller who has a question about why she feels so compelled to buy new clothes and other trendy things, even though she already has enough. And then we've got a lightning round question. This is a special one, TK. Might be my favorite one. That question is, what's the last thing you didn't purchase? Ooh. That's followed by our Right Here, Right Now segment and a listener tip for you. You can check out the Maximal edition of episode 456. That's 456, which really pleases the OCD side of me. 456. That's the full 2-hour episode where we answer twice as many questions and we dive deep into several simple living segments. That private podcast is out right now. Patreon.com/theminimalists. Your support keeps our podcast 100% advertisement free because sing along at home, y'all. Advertisements suck. Yes, they do. By the way, you can hear our live studio audience. We have a minimalist studio audience here. Spire Jeff is here, Amara is here, and we'll introduce you to Matt Savadakis here later in the episode. But first, let's start with our callers. If you have a question or a comment for our show, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone number is 406-219-7839, or you can email a voice recording right from your phone to podcast@theminimalists.com. Our first question today is from Haley.
Hi, Minimalists. My name is Haley, and I'm from San Francisco, California. My question is, I would like to know how I can get over my need for things to feel new, specifically when it comes to clothing, but also home decor and that sort of thing. So for me, clothes feel desirable only when I've purchased them within the last 3 to 6 months or so. And after that, they seem to lose their appeal to me and they start to feel kind of stale. And it's not that the clothes have lost their function or form. They're not out of style. They just no longer have that shiny new feeling like I just bought this and I'm going to wear it every day type of feel. I've always loved change, so maybe that's part of it. Like I said, I also do this with home decor and artwork on my walls and things like that. And I don't really think it's a shopping addiction because it's not the act of shopping that I crave. It's the joy of having clothes that feel good to me because they're new. But of course, it's costing me quite a bit because I buy new clothes and things even when I don't need them. So this is really a problem I'd like to get over somehow. My current closet feels stale to me, even though I purchased all of these items at one point and liked them for a period of time. So that's my question. Thank you for taking the time to answer it.
Alabama, you know what I do when my clothes feel stale? I wash them. I don't think that's where Haley wants to go with this. So, no. I get it. Like, we all want to feel as though we have this newness, this variety in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so I think it manifests differently for different people. I heard a bunch of stuff here, TK. I think the heart of the question is, why do I feel compelled to buy new clothes even though I already have enough? My current clothes are enough, but they start to feel like they are not enough because, well, maybe it's not trendy enough anymore. I think it's important to remember that trendy is just a corporate jargon for soon to be out of style, by the way. The things that were trendy back in 2017 are now you look at it and you're like, oh, wait, what's going on there? Oh, the skinny jeans. And that was so trendy at one point. And then it's like, we got Savadakis here and he's dressed like I was in 1999. and so you realize that trends also come back into style as well. But something that's trendy today will pretty soon be out of style. And so personally, from a practical standpoint, I do prefer things that are a bit more timeless. But also, I prefer to have things that I feel good in. I think it's one of the paradoxes of minimalism. As a minimalist, all of my clothes are my favorite clothes because I don't hold on to clothes that are no longer my favorite clothes. However, if that means replacing my clothes every single month, like Haley feels compelled to do, I think that's where the problem begins.
That's right. And trending is also tricky now because in social media, trending can also mean here is what we want you to be talking about. So we're going to put it in this little section and make it trend, self-fulfilling prophecy. Next time you're on social media and you see that something's trending, click on it and go look at what everyone's saying. Probably the first 50 comments will be like, oh, well, since this person is trending, I guess I'll post about this. And now you've made it happen. But, I like your thoughts on this because without conviction, we're always just tossed to and fro with every changing whim. And so the question always has to be, what am I passionate talking about when no one else is talking about it? What do I like to think about when no one else is thinking about it? What looks cool to me when it ceases to be cool to everyone else? Because that's your interest. That's your conviction. That's the thing that if you wear, if you talk about, if you do it with such swag and authenticity that people will buy it anyway. But it's the things that lack conviction that you say, think about, wear, and do just because they happen to be popular right now that also cease to be cool when they cease to be cool for the rest of the world. And I find that the greatest musicians, the greatest artists, the greatest radio hosts, the greatest filmmakers, these are people who start with a baseline of what is cool to me? What is the story I can't shut up about? What is that thing that if I put on, it just feels good on my body? And then the rest of the world looks at it and they either go, hey, let's all do that. That seems pretty cool. Or they say, I never do that. But there's something about the way she wears it. There's something about the way he does it that just makes it work.
There's an interesting question beneath that. Who am I wearing this for? And it's not a rhetorical question in the sense that I should only be wearing this for myself. Well, no, that's absurd too, right? Sometimes if we go to a formal function, I'm wearing this because this is what is accepted by the group. And for whatever reason, I feel compelled to fit into this. And really, I feel compelled to not stand out here. Yeah. But the opposite of that is when I wear trendy clothes, I want to stand out. Yeah. Okay, stand out to whom? Who am I wearing this for? And the clothes that I wear, they are comfortable, they work well for me, but I don't prescribe them to anyone else either. And if this is trendy, that's fine. If it's not trendy, it's fine as well because I'm not wearing it for other people. I'm wearing it for me first and foremost. Now, if you come to my house on a random weekend, like Jeff and Amar were just up there, they're here on the couch right now. And I think I answered the door with just shorts on and no shirt. Like I'm wearing that just
deliberately.
Yeah. I was giving out the vibes.
I always pull off my t-shirt when I go answer the door. Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I was just working out. What's up?
Well, I do want to talk about the addiction side of this. She said, I don't think I have a shopping addiction because I'm not addicted to the act of shopping. And we got to be careful around that because just because you're not addicted to the act of shopping itself, it's like saying, well, I don't have a heroin addiction because I'm not addicted to going to buy the heroin. I'm only addicted to using the heroin, right? And so, yes, it may be true in a literal sense that the shopping part is less appealing to you, but there is something about the newness behind that. This great quote from David Foster Wallace. In fact, someone wrote a biography about his life after he passed away, and it was a quote from him that they used as the title. Every love story is a ghost story. And for me, every addiction story is a story about not having enough. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I see addiction as a legitimate appetite that's satiated in an unhealthy way. And so I don't think the appetite is the addiction. I think the way we go about fulfilling it and the sorts of things that happen along the way are what lead to addiction. And here's what I think Haley has right. What I really love about it is she seems to be dressing for herself because what she loves is that feeling of freshness that new clothes give her body. It's like when she's in that mirror with those clothes on, she's like, ain't nobody dope as me. I'm just so fresh and clean, And it's like, man, that good feeling. And that's what you want, right? That should be the priority. When I put on something, I feel good because you know what it's like, whether it's in your writing, in your teaching. There are just days, however rare they may be, where you feel so at one with what you're putting out there. And you don't need anyone to tell you that you're good. And someone can even say, oh, you're terrible, never quit your day job. And you're just completely unfluttered by it because you're in alignment. But then there are times where you're not in alignment with yourself and you need the whole world to tell you that you're good. And even if you get that lucky, you're still not sure because you got to live with yourself and you just don't like the way it feels on you, right? And so you got to like the way it feels on you. And I love that she has that. My question would be, what if there's nothing wrong with her at all? What if the only problem is she hasn't found a way that is her way? Because sometimes those feelings of dissatisfaction that we have are our own body's way of protecting us from forcing ourselves to do things that are not true to our way. How many people are there out there who think they hate working out because they're trying to exercise like someone else, because they've been convinced that that's the one right way to exercise. And the fact that they just can't get it going is their body's way of saying, no, I'm not going to allow you to get away with doing something that's based on another person's script. You got to find your way, and I'm not going to let you enjoy this until you find your way. If that's what you like, that new feeling, then maybe there's a way to approach shopping, a way to approach clothing that's different than the consensus. You know, we had a whole episode about renting clothes, right? And there's that idea of you sign up for a service and you get to pick new outfits every month. And so you have that constant variety. There are inconveniences and trade-offs that go along with that, but that's true of everything. You could also say, hey, look, what's a way for me to double down on this, own the fact that this is how I am, and maybe I can minimize in other areas of my life so that I can afford to do the investments that I need. It's like Ramit Sethi said, what did he say? What is your rich life?
Yeah, what does your rich life look like?
Yeah.
And I think for some people, it might mean having new clothes all the time. And so that episode you mentioned, rental culture, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. But I remember after that, my wife signed up for one of those rental clothing services. I think it's called New or something. Not a sponsor, obviously. And they send her basically 6 new things that she gets to pick from. So she gets to curate it herself.
Yeah.
And then every month she has some variety. And occasionally she'll find something, I really like this. I want to keep wearing it. And you know what happens? She holds on to it. She can purchase it from them, or she can purchase her own version of it. But the other stuff she gets to send back, not because she's not getting value from it, but because she already got the value from it. And now it's time to move on. And it gives her that variety. I'm thinking of this term. I've heard Dan Savage talk about it in the terms of like dating advice. It's called phrasexual. And it's someone who gets into a relationship, and quite often over a short period of time, call it 6 months to a year, what happens? They start to not be attracted to their partner anymore. They maybe even actively dislike their partner. I wonder if there's a corollary here with consumption. So the people who are phrasexuals, it's on the asexual spectrum. And so what happens is over time, when they get with someone, they become asexual toward that person. They need the newness. They need the variety. And I don't want to pathologize that and say it's wrong, but maybe there's a fray consumer analog to that as well. And I think our culture does a really good job of saying, buy this, buy this, buy this to satisfy you. But we confuse satisfaction with fulfillment. A really great meal will satisfy you, but tomorrow you're going to be hungry again, right? And so you're going to need to keep consuming. However, it becomes an addiction when we are consuming things that we know are actively harming us. And so I think the question underneath this question is this behavior harming me in some way? Now, obviously, it's creating some sort of mental or emotional clutter that's going on with Haley and her purchasing decisions, but maybe there's a way to embrace that newness, whether it's a rental service or it is just a way of finding out you already have enough. And that made me think about this article that so many people have sent me recently. We're going to read the full thing coming up on the private podcast, but I thought we'd dive into it a little bit here, Malabama. Can you read the title about this? It's about Underconsumption Core.
Tired of influencers, TikTok users try Underconsumption Core to cut costs.
And what's the subtitle?
The trend of Underconsumption Core romanticizes buying and using only what you need. Yes, being normal is now trending. Experts say it's a response to a period of economic hardship.
I think that is true. It is a response to a period of economic hardship. This is just another way to say minimalism, by the way, or simple living, or simplicity, or living with less, or living within your means. There's a new term for it. was talking to Nicodemus this weekend after our Friday afternoon minimalist Zoom with our patrons. And he was like, I think you can just add the word core to anything and it becomes a new trend. The irony of this is it's not actually under-consuming. It's under-consuming relative to the overconsumption.
Yeah.
So underconsumption core is actually just dialing back the consumption to that which is a more appropriate amount. Because if I'm just feasting all the time on junk food, what's going to happen? Not only am I going to become unhealthy, I'm going to feel unhealthy. And I think that's what happened with our material good consumption as well. We consume it because it's supposed to make us feel fulfilled, but it doesn't. It satisfies us for a day or a month or whatever. And that thing we coveted, we then are disgusted by. We've become a fray consumer of sorts.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to not stop our analysis at the level of behavior, but to always take one step back and say, what is right about my desire? Because there's a reason why we're so vulnerable to the lies of consumerism. It's because it appeals to some kind of legitimate appetite. Sir Ken Robinson, the great educator, told the story of a woman whose daughter just performed so poorly in school, got lots of complaints from the teachers. And one day someone came to observe, and after observing the girl for 5 minutes, they said, your daughter isn't a bad learner. She's a dancer. And what you need for her is to get her into a space where she can express what she's telling you when she's in the classroom and can't sit still. But if you just focus on the behavior, you see someone who can't sit still in class and you say, that's bad behavior. That's undesirable. That doesn't work for this context. Let's get you fixed up and right so that you can sit still. And we never analyze what's underneath that. We just force them to conform. We teach them how to suppress what is within them. And they never get the answer to what they really need. But we achieve the satisfaction of, oh, you're no longer a difficulty for me. And this is what we do to ourselves and to others. How do I make myself as least difficult as possible? And that's no way to live your life. What's right about your desire? If you need to switch things up every 6 months, even if no one else around you is like that, what's right about that? In the business world, there are some people who are great managers. They can stay at a company for 30 years and keep the ship running well. And there are some people that are only great as starter-uppers. They get a company going, but then they're bored after a month and they need to go start up a new venture. Which one is right? Neither one.
That's right.
Both of them are great, and you need both types. Some people talk a lot. Some people don't have anything to say, or they have something to say in a different way. Which one is right? They're both right for different contexts. So what's right about your desire to switch it up? And how can you create a context where you're interacting with clothes and you're shopping in a way that works for you so that you can honor that? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You just haven't found a way that works for you. And so what's happening is you're going about this in a way that's causing you to either overspend or frustrate yourself.
And maybe you're frustrated because other people are telling you that you shouldn't want new clothes. And so that's not the way that I want to approach this. And hopefully you don't see the minimalist as saying, well, you should be happy with the clothes you have and you should never want new clothes ever again. No, of course not. It's great if you are, but it's great if you're not and you want some more variety in your life as well. And that's not a cop-out answer. The answer is how much is enough for you. And right now, you might be at a place where you have too much. It's too much of the old clothes, too much of the non-variety, too much of the things you don't want, and you don't have enough of the things that you do want. You do want that variety. But then I'm going to step back and I'm going to ask, why do I want that variety? There's not a wrong answer to that, but understanding the why you're compelled, who am I wearing this for? Now, let's get practical to wrap up this question. There are some things you can do right away. Earlier, I said, as a minimalist, all of my clothes are my favorite clothes. Well, why is that? Because I got rid of all the clothes that I dislike. I call it shopping in my own closet. So I go into my closet, and if I put something on, I'm just like, I don't know, this feels kind of... As soon as I have that, get rid of it. That's what I do, because I know that it's not magically going to be better tomorrow, but that's what happens. I'll just put it back on the hanger or back in the drawer for tomorrow. I'm going to force my future self to deal with this problem because I don't want to deal with the problem now. So I go shopping in my own closet. What else does that do? It pulls other things forward, like, oh wow, I haven't worn this in 6 weeks. Why haven't I been wearing this more frequently? I put it on, I'm like, I really like this. I want to wear this more. So sometimes you can get variety from the things that are already in your closet that you aren't wearing. And then I think ultimately it's about boundaries. We have quite a few boundaries around clothing. I think our rule book, the Minimalist Rule Book, 16 Rules for Living with Less, which you can download for free over at theminimalists.com/rulebook. There are 16 rules in there that help us set up some boundaries in our lives. One of them is the seasonality rule, and that is perfect for clothing. Have I worn this jacket in the last 90 days? And if so, great. I'm probably going to keep it for now if I'm still enjoying it. But if not, am I going to wear it in the next 90 days? And I have to be honest with myself because it's easy to tell myself a story. Am I really going to wear this in the next 90 days?
Yeah.
And if not, it's a 90-90 rule. It covers basically every season, right? And so what happens is I realize, I'm holding on to something I'm not going to get value from now. I'm not going to get value from it in the future. It doesn't mean I didn't get value from it before, but it's also okay to let go of something that I got value from before that isn't continuing to serve me. One last rule from that Minimalist Rule Book, the spontaneous combustion rule. And this one is my favorite. I think it works so perfectly for clothing because you can pick up any item in your home, but especially a piece of clothing. You've got this old, oversized fuchsia sweatshirt with tassels, and it's there in the back of your closet, and you pull it off, and you're like, okay, if this were to spontaneously combust, would I replace it or would I feel relief? And if the answer is, I'd definitely replace it. I've got to have this fuchsia sweatshirt with the tassels. Great, then don't get rid of it, right? But if you're like, oh yeah, I definitely feel relieved, that's a sign that I want to let go. Haley, I want to send you a copy of the Minimalists essay collection. It's called Essential, and there are 150 essays in there about intentional living. There's an entire chapter in there about stuff, and there are at least 2 essays about clothing in that essay collection. We'll go ahead and send you a copy of that book, or if you want the ebook or audio book, we'd be happy to send those to you as well. We'll put a link to that book in the show notes for anyone else who wants to check out Essential Essays from the Minimalists. Before we get back to our callers, Malabama, what time is it?
You know what time it is. It's time for the lightning round where we answer the Patreon community chat's question of the week.
Yes, indeed. Now, during the lightning round, we each have 60 seconds to answer your question with a short, shareable minimal maxim. You can find this episode's maxims in the show notes at theminimalists.com/podcast and every minimal maxim ever at minimalmaxims.com. We'll also deliver our weekly show notes directly to your inbox, including 7 new maxims every Monday for free if you sign up for our email newsletter at theminimalists.email. We'll never send you spam or junk or advertisements, but we will start your week with a dose of simplicity. What's the question of the week this week?
What's the last thing you didn't buy?
Oh, this might be my favorite question so far. What's the last thing you didn't buy? And we had a bunch of people respond to this. So before we get to our pithy answers, TK, let's hear how some of our listeners answered this question.
Meg said, autumn home decor because I am a recovering seasonal decorator.
What about you, TK? Seasonal decorating, is it Christmas 24/7?
I'm a big time seasonal decorator. It's always Christmas, and there is a version of Christmas for every season. There's July 4th, red, white, and blue Christmas. There's Halloween Christmas. So yeah, this is a good one though, because they pull out those holiday season decorations very, very early.
Yes.
To the point where they're telling you, hey, you need to be preparing for this now. Really? I didn't know. It's so early. Yeah, you need to buy your stuff.
I am not a seasonal, I don't decorate based on seasonal holidays, although I do like the seasonal variety. We heard Haley mention that earlier about, also home decor and art. I do like moving things around. And so one of the things, and we've talked about this on a home decor episode before, but one of the things I really like to do is every quarter or so, just move where the artwork is in the house. So you just have like a vase here and you move it to a different shelf. And all of a sudden, what you're doing is you're reorienting. You stop taking the things for granted because you're just subtly reorienting the space throughout the year. So in fall, I might not bring out the decorative gourds or whatever, but I might move this vase from this shelf to this shelf, or move these books from this shelf to this shelf, or just rearrange things subtly so it gives me that variety that I enjoy, so it doesn't feel stale to me. Mm-hmm. What else do we have in Alabama?
Myrna, Velanie, and George all said that they didn't buy a souvenir from the last place they visited.
Oh, nice.
That's hard.
This is one of those things. I remember when I went to South Dakota and went to Mount Rushmore, and it's stunning. And if you were just to drive past it and you didn't know it was coming up, you would think that, by the way, it'll be the only thing that remains after all humans are off this earth for like about 10 to 20,000 years. The only thing that will really remain, I think, is Mount Rushmore. There may be one or two other things, but that's really it because it's carved into the side of a mountain. So it's this epic thing, but it's totally ruined by all of the tchotchke shops that lead up to it. And they want to sell you really cheap plastic versions, ironically made in a different country, that sort of commemorate this, but they don't do it any justice at all. It's almost like painting a McDonald's logo onto a Picasso painting. It's like, oh no, it's ruined that art for me. And I think quite often, there's nothing wrong with buying a souvenir, bring it home if you want, but also needing to do that while you're out on vacation can totally get in the way of your vacation.
Yeah, souvenirs are the original version of pics or it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Long before the internet, you went to a new place and you felt like, well, I got to buy a meaningless trinket to prove that I've been here, right? Or to let someone that I love know that I'm thinking about them. And like you said, it's okay. It's totally fine as long as we don't expect more out of it than what it is capable of providing. It would be like if I gave you $1 and you celebrate it, I'd be happy for you. Like, I don't know what that means to you, but then immediately after celebrating, you go, man, I'm so happy this is going to be able to help me purchase that new Ferrari. I'd be like, wait a minute. I'm worried about how far you think that dollar is going to go. Same thing with souvenirs. You can celebrate it. It's fine, but it's not going to go that far.
What about Travis?
Travis said, I almost got caught up in the new things are better than old things mentality and got a new iPhone. But I took a moment to remember my current one is still working perfectly fine and cash in my pocket is freedom.
The vocabulary word of the day is contemporaneity. That's what that basically means. The new things are better than the old things. We were actually talking about this before the podcast started about a completely different topic, but contemporaneity just says that the new things are better, right? And sometimes that is true. So I don't want to dismiss that. Sometimes tradition is better, but sometimes tradition doesn't make sense to hold on to that either, right? And there'll become a day where I need to replace my iPhone. Just because a new one came out, that's not a good reason necessarily to replace it. But if there's a particular feature that I want, or if my old phone just craps out on me, I know AB, her computer just crapped out on her recently, so she just got a new computer. Sometimes that just happens, especially with technology. Where it becomes pernicious is, the marketers have told me that the new thing will make me a better version of me.
By the way, I love the cash is freedom. Not because cash is freedom for everybody, but because he has his own definition of what it means to be free, and that is what gives you the guidance about what to purchase and what not to purchase. It's not about what I think or anyone else thinks. It's not something that a book can tell you or a guru can tell you. You've got to know what freedom means for you, and when you know what freedom means for you, it contextualizes all the choices that you have to make.
And when I started simplifying my life, one of the things I wrote about in Everything That Remains is I took a gigantic pay cut, a 90% pay cut. I walked away from the corporate world at age 30. By the way, happy birthday again to Alabama. She just turned 30.
Happy birthday! Woo!
And I made $23,000 that year. And strangely, I was more free. But here's why. And it goes back to what Travis said. The cash in my pocket is freedom. And what I determined is every time I went to go buy something, if I wanted to go buy a $50 shirt, I'm giving away 50 units of my freedom in exchange for that shirt. And sometimes it's worth it. But the question then is, am I willing to part with X number of units of my freedom in order to acquire that new thing? What about Susan?
She said, I resisted dessert at dinner last night. My taste buds wanted it, but my stomach didn't.
Okay, so I want to do an entire episode, and I've been writing an essay called Wednesdays. Jeff, we were just talking about this last night. And so this concept I have of Wednesday, it's sort of twofold. And the dessert thing is great because I never wish I would have eaten the dessert last Wednesday if I didn't eat it. I don't look back and say, man, I really should have eaten the cheesecake, which is actually a pie in Alabama.
We're going to fight.
But regardless of whether or not it's cheesecake or cheese pie, I never want to go back to the last Wednesday and say, I should have had more cheesecake, right? And so I think the same thing is true when I'm making a decision right now. Am I going to be happy next Wednesday that I ate this cheesecake right now? And if the answer is yes, then okay. But if I'm honest with myself, I know that next Wednesday, I'm not going to look back and say, oh yeah, I'm really happy I made that decision. However, there are some things, especially difficult things. I'm really glad I went to the gym, or I'm really glad I fasted last Thursday, or whatever it might be. The things that are more difficult to do, we often look back and say, yeah, I'm grateful that I did that difficult thing. I'm also reminded of the story that John Deloney told us. He had a friend who had a kid who was going up to the dessert table at a charity function. And the kid goes up and he's an autistic kid. And everyone in the community just loves this kid. And he's so like, he's the life of the party, right? And he walks up to the dessert table and he starts piling on 1 dessert, 2 desserts, 3 desserts onto his plate. And the lady behind the counter goes, you might want to save some more for other people. He goes, oh, there's plenty here. 5 desserts, 6 desserts, 7 desserts on the plate. And she goes, we'll just call him Andy. Andy, you know, if you eat all that, it's going to give you a really bad stomach ache. He looks down at the food. He looks up at her and he goes, that sounds like a problem for future Andy. But here's the truth. Maybe your future self will not be happy with the decision you're making right now, or maybe your future self will be really grateful for the decisions you make right now, including the decisions of, I didn't buy that, I didn't eat that, I didn't consume that, I didn't take on that debt. Let's do one more from Anita.
I have a matching set of living room chairs that I like, but one of them shows considerably more wear than the other because it was my dad's favorite. I had to discard it, but instead of rushing out to get a new pair, I'm enjoying the space it's opened up.
I think that's the key to all of this. What didn't I buy? Well, what am I enjoying about not buying it? The space that is freed up, the space that I don't have to clutter with these new items. How about you, listeners? What's the last thing you didn't buy? Let us know in the comments. Okay, give me something pithy, TK. Actually, I think you and I both had 2 minimal maxims for this. So what's the last thing you didn't buy?
My maxim is skip the sale, keep the peace. The less you have, the less you have to think about. But once you have it, where am I going to put it? How am I going to maintain it? Who's going to be in charge of it when I'm not around? How am I going to insure the thing, protect the thing? Then you have that psychological weight of how guilty you get to feel when you put that thing in storage or leave it on the shelf, leave it in the box, unread, unused. It starts to weigh on you subconsciously. And that's the illusion of free, right? Once something is free, it gives it that sense of, oh, it would be a loss for me not to buy it. You know, imagine if you don't drink soda and the grocery store on your block said, hey, all the soda is free for the day. You'd be tempted to go buy some because somebody's going to use it, right? Maybe there's an opportunity here. So when we say that it's free or we say that it's on sale, we put the pressure on you. Uh-oh, you're going to lose by not buying. But that's the last thing I didn't buy. I didn't buy that lie.
I love that you're calling it buying even though it's free because you're being honest about it.
Yeah.
It's still a purchasing decision.
Yeah.
It's still a consumption decision. Even if you're not parting with your money, that's only one resource you have to part with. You're also parting with your time and your attention. And if it's the soda, maybe you're parting with a little bit of your health as well. And so what are all of the other factors? What are the other costs that are embedded into this consumption decision besides the price point? Which actually brings me to one of my minimal maxims. Knowledge is a byproduct of consumption. Wisdom is the result of letting go. Quite often, we gain wisdom, which is different from knowledge. Knowledge is like, I've consumed some information. You can read a bunch of books and get a bunch of knowledge from a bunch of information from those things, and that's great. But wisdom is when I've suffered through the experience itself and maybe even suffered through letting go. Letting go is difficult to do, but it's also really simple. All you have to do is stop holding on. And one of the best ways to stop holding on is to never even bring it home in the first place, which brings me to my other maxim. Leave it on the shelf today if you don't want to declutter it tomorrow. Because that is the most sustainable purchase, not just environmentally sustainable, but sustainable for your own life, realizing that, oh, wait, I can put some distance between me and that purchase. We call it the 30-30 rule or the wait for it rule. It's also in our minimalist rule book. And if something costs more than $30, I just wait 30 hours to make that purchasing decision. It's not because I can't afford the $30. It's because I can't afford to consume on impulse. You have one more pithy answer for us, TK?
Yeah, what you don't need costs too much. One of the reasons why it's so important to have like a mission or like a sense of purpose is because it gives you a mindset that thinks beyond survival. If you're only thinking in terms of, all right, I pay my bills for the month and, I have this much left over, you become very vulnerable to all of the messages out there about what you need to buy. But when you have a sense of purpose, every dollar has a role that it plays in your life. There's something that you're aiming for, some bit of generosity you want to express in an intentional direction, something that you're saving up for. And when people tell you those lies, you can make a comparison and say, well, if I pull this dollar from that dream, from that mission, and put it towards that, I'm compromising what matters most to me. And so you got to see these things as having a cost. When people give it to you for free, when they give it to you at a discount, it still has a cost because there is some alternative opportunity that you're compromising your ability to say yes to.
And it's so hard because it's sale, sale, sale. It's scarcity. It's act now. It's, oh my God, it's 40% off. But it's 100% off if you don't buy it. All right, we're just getting started, y'all. We have plenty of callers to talk to still. But first, real quick for right here, right now, here's one thing that's going on in the life of the Minimalists. So we really want you to hear our recent San Diego event. We finished up the Everything Tour. It was magical. It was celebrating the 10th anniversary of our book, Everything That Remains. And we did 6 different cities and we recorded all of them. And you can find those on Patreon. But we wanted to make this one free and accessible to everyone. So if you head on over to theminimalists.com/San Diego, you can listen even if you aren't a Patreon supporter. You just have to click join for free to log in. A magical event. We had Colin Wright there and it almost didn't happen, but Alabama and TK came through at the last minute. We found, because we outgrew the bookstore, and so we had to find this amazing theater thanks to the San Diego Public School District that were able to give it to us relatively cheaply. Oh, and by the way, speaking of events, warm welcome to our new events intern. Matt Savadakis is here.
Yes.
He's in the studio with us. So as you know, we've removed ourselves from social media for this year, and our focus is not about reaching more people. We reached 500 million people last year. The question is, how can we go deeper with fewer people? And so we're bringing back Sunday Symposium now that the Everything Tour is over. It's our monthly event in Los Angeles. And he'll actually be at the next one. It's this weekend on August 25th. And it's sold out. Tickets are already gone. They went away in like an hour or a couple hours, within a day for sure. And so it's sold out, but you can get on the wait list over at sundaysymposium.com. We will notify you as a few of those free tickets open up. You can also find that in the show notes. By the way, we always mention everyone from our team, whether it's Spire Jeff or Spire Dave and post-production Peter and Alabama and everyone else, AB, Savadakis. We need a new name for you. I don't know what the nickname for. Savvy, maybe? Come on. That's
Whoa, Savvy D.
You can follow our entire team. We put a link to their Instagram in the show notes as well if you would like to interact with them in person. That's over at theminimalists.com/podcast. Our show notes for every episode are over there. We'll see you at Sunday Symposium this weekend. If you already got your tickets, if not, make sure you get on the wait list. We'd love to see you there. And even if you can't make it into this one, if you're on the wait list, you'll be the first to know about the next Sunday Symposium. You'll be the first to hear about those free tickets as we release them. Alabama, what else you got for us?
Here's a minimalist insight from one of our listeners.
Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I'm calling in from New York City, and I'm a Patreon member. I'm commenting in again to thank either Joshua or TK. I couldn't remember who said the tip about what to do with awards. I'm at the end stages of wrapping up my late grandmother's estate and have started to think critically about my own possessions. I took my awards from middle school to the trophy store to have the plates with my name listed. I donated the awards to the trophy shop and also donated the award to the police station. I then took the plates with my name on it and then placed them in a picture frame to take up less space on my mantle. Thank you again for your tip.
Stephanie, thank you so much for that thoughtful comment. For anyone else who has a listener tip or insight about this episode or any other episode, leave a comment on Patreon or YouTube, or better yet, send a voice memo to podcast@theminimalists.com so we can feature your voice on the show. All right, that's the first 36% of episode 456. We'll see you on Patreon for the full Maximal edition, which includes answers to a bunch more questions. Questions like, why do I feel annoyed when my friends purchase clothes that are similar to mine? Is it best to have a minimalist wedding, or is it okay to have a maximalist ceremony? How can poor people afford to embrace minimalism? Plus a million more questions and simple living segments over on the Minimalist Private Podcast. We also have an outstanding home tour from one of our listeners this week. Visit patreon.com/theminimalist or click the link down in the description to subscribe and get your personal link so that our weekly Maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. You'll also gain access to all of our podcast archives all the way back to episode 001. By the way, Patreon is now offering free trials, so if you'd like to test drive our private podcast, you can join for 7 days for free. And that is our minimal episode for today. Big thanks to Earthing Studios for the recording space. On behalf of Ryan Nicodemus, TK Coleman, Malabama, Post-Production Peter, Spire Jeff, and Spire Dave, who's not here in the studio, but he's here in essence, right? We've got AB Yinzi over here. Savvy D, is that what we're calling him, TK?
I think so, man. It has a nice ring, like it's bringing back Heavy D, but with the savvy this time.
Well, on behalf of him and the rest of our team, my name is Joshua Fields Milburn. If you leave here with just one message, let it be this: love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.